Afternoon. Welcome all of you to the November 16th, 2023 regular meeting of the Forsyth County Commissioners. We're going to begin our meeting today with an invocation from Michael Jenkins, Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Wisenhunt. And please stand if you're able.
Our Father, who art in heaven, as we gather on this occasion in the capacity of this Board of Commissioners meeting, we pause to give thanks and recognize all the blessings that emanate from Thee, and grateful for those. Thankful for life, our health and well-being. We're grateful today, especially for those who serve our community, for the leaders and all that they do as they strive to make the lives of our citizens of our community better. We ask for a blessing on them as they continue to do their duties and responsibilities, that they may meet with success. A blessing on this meeting especially, that they might achieve the things and goals that they have set out to achieve. We are most grateful for our Savior, Jesus Christ, and mindful of Him, and pray that we might remember Him on a daily basis as He has paved the way that we might live again beyond the grave. We ask a blessing upon those who serve our community and put themselves in harm's way on occasion, a blessing of protection. Pray for these things and give thanks in the sacred name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jenkins. Thank you. Citizens who are interested in participating in the public session portion of the meeting, please call 336-422-1200. You'll be placed on hold until the public session begins. Members of the audience who are interested in participating in the public portion of the meeting, you just need to fill out a speaker card and return it to the clerk, Ms. Matthews, at the end of the table. I'll mention that phone number again for those who may call in, 336-422-1200. First item on the agenda today is a public hearing on the petition to close a portion of Plemons Road. And I'd like to ask Shirley Bowen from the Geographic Information Office to give us a brief overview of the request. We're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon. Ashley, I'm forgetting how to do this.
Was it not this way? Oh, that one.
Okay.
Is that mic on by any chance? Well, I guess it is.
Gotcha. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You might bend it a little more towards you, perhaps. Thank you.
Better?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go over the abandonment of the last 225 feet of Plemons Road. Again, as we briefed before, the petitioner is LaSara Land LLC. So this is just an overview of the property as it stands. You can see where LaSara Lodge Road comes across. This is supposed to be the access for the new development where Plemons Road will be closed at that portion that is highlighted in red. Jeffrey Ferner here was one of the co-petitioners, and then Thomas Hall, part of his land, will also be included in LaSara's development. This is just the overview of the plans, and you can see where LaSara already owns these two portions, and then this section will be closed and annexed. I'll zoom in. The next slide shows this zoomed in, but this is the Lake at LaSara overall site plan, which includes these sections over here, that these plots from 125 to 129 will now be a part of that development. And this is where you can see LaSarra Lodge will allow for them to enter, and that there's no need for that additional access off of Plemons Road. So the NCDOT investigated the request and said that it meets the state requirements for abandonment. LaSarra Land LLC and Jeffrey Ferner petitioned. And then here is that petition, as well as a letter from state DOT saying that all the requirements for abandonment have been met. And that is all. Any questions?
Any questions for Shaylee?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing, and speakers will have up to 15 minutes total. Speak in favor of this request, up to 15 minutes total. Speak in opposition. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? Declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut, second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Second item on the agenda is a resolution giving notice of intention to reduce the salary, allowances, and other compensation of a non-incumbent Register of Deeds of Forsyth County who takes office in December 2024. Any little just brief highlights is we're not reducing anyone's salary, but it is, if there's a new person, it has everything to do with filing fees that have to be done here shortly, and then it can be, salary will be adjusted if a new person were elected. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Second? Second by Commissioner McDaniel and Bessie, both. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is a resolution recognizing November as 2023 Adoption Awareness Month. Adrienne Turner from Social Services Division Director is here to receive the resolution. Please come forward. Thank you. And anyone else that's with you that you'd like to bring. Commissioner Woodbury, actually, Commissioner Woodbury is here, and she will actually come down and read the resolution and present it to you.
Good afternoon, Chair Martin and Vice Chair Wizenhut. This is a resolution recognizing November 2023 as Adoption Awareness Month in Forsyth County, North Carolina. Whereas Forsyth County recognizes the importance of giving children in foster care permanent, safe, and loving families through adoption. Whereas every child deserves to grow up in a loving, stable family environment. Whereas more than 100,000 children in the United States are in the foster care system and are waiting to be adopted. Whereas approximately 230 children in Forsyth County are in foster care, 68 of whom are legally available for adoption, and of that number, 22 are not in adoptive placements awaiting permanent families. Whereas the Forsyth County Department of Social Services is joined by numerous individuals along with public and private organizations who work diligently to increase public awareness around the needs of children currently in foster care and those leaving the foster care system, as well as the enduring and valuable contribution of all foster care parents, relatives, and approved caretakers who meet the needs of these children. And whereas this action, along with similar recognitions in all 50 states, will bring awareness to the need for adoptive families and will offer children the chance to live with stable and loving families and encourage other dedicated individuals to make a powerful difference in the lives of a child through adoption. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners hereby declares November 2023 as Adoption Awareness Month in Forsyth County, North Carolina, and residents of Forsyth County are encouraged to join in raising awareness on behalf of the children in Forsyth County who are awaiting for a loving family regardless of race, age, gender, health, emotional, or behavioral condition or past distress, adopted this 16th day of November 2023.
I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And Ms. Turner, if you'd like to say a word, take the copy of the proclamation and anything you'd like.
Thank you, and we just want to thank you all for continuing to support the children of Forsyth County, and I just want to highlight our amazing adoption team that is behind me with their supervisor and their program manager. Thank you.
Thanks for the work you do. You all turn around, you can have a picture made. All right, the next items on the agenda are two proclamations recognizing November 17th, 2023 as World Prematurity Awareness Day in Forsyth County. Nicole Brenner from Novant Health is here to receive the proclamation along with perhaps any colleagues, but come right on up. And Commissioner McDaniel is going to Commissioner, it doesn't make any, but they actually are two different ones. I have Commissioner McDaniel reading the proclamation for Novant.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be reading the proclamation today, so we have clarity, as the World's Prematurity Awareness Day in Forsyth County, North Carolina. Whereas families face serious health risks and Novant Health fights for their health by supporting research, leading programs, and providing education for advocacy. Whereas Novant Health is committed to amplifying the voices of pregnant people and families in North Carolina. Whereas Novant Health has worked extensively to improve access to paternal care for all, increase awareness of the impacts of implicit bias on maternal health care, and raise awareness of the importance of optimal preconception health as the strategy to improve maternal health, reduce preterm birth, infant mortality, and maternal mortality as well. Whereas Novant Health will continue their work in the community to address the maternal and infant crisis of prematurity, as well as social determinants of health, such as transportation and housing. Now, therefore, be it resolved, be it proclaimed that Forsyth County, the Board of Commissioners, has recognized this day, November the 17th, 2023, as World Premature Awareness Day in Forsyth County, North Carolina, proclaimed this 16th again day of 2023. Thank you.
Second that motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Ms. Brenner, you're welcome to come forward, say a few words, and introduce your colleague.
Come on up, Ellen. Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm Nicole Brenner with Novant Health, and I just wanted to extend our sincere gratitude in extending this proclamation for World Prematurity Day and Prematurity Awareness. Ellen is a colleague and partner and part of her organization from One Love Foundation, and she carries this with her because this was the size of her daughter Love upon birth from a premature birth. And so we do this to raise awareness, and while tomorrow is technically the Prematurity Awareness Day, today is a really important day as well, as March of Dimes organization has released their report card for maternal and infant health. And sadly, for the second year in a row, the United States has received a D+ on that report card. North Carolina, as a state, also received a D+. Those statistics are driven highly because of the prematurity rates within North Carolina and within the country. 1 in 10 babies is born prematurely. this size or a little bigger of all of our live births within the state. And so it's important to recognize and advocate for these moms and these women. Black women are actually 1.5 times more likely to deliver their babies prematurely. And when we come to these things and think about awareness days, I've often think to myself, what can I do to raise awareness and to advocate for these moms and families? And a lot of it is education. So I would encourage everyone here and out in the audience to be a part of March of Dimes and the report card that they give out. Educate yourselves on the statistics and crisis around maternal health. And then we at Novant Health are proud and are blessed and to be able to serve the moms in this community and partner with organizations like One Love and others to help to support these families. So we really appreciate y'all's support.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you bringing it to our attention and the great work that you do health-wise. Thank you.
Ann Smith is going to come up too. She's our wonderful nursing colleague. Hey everyone, thank you so much for your support.
Thank you for being here and for what you do. I got you on. The second proclamation will be received by Sharita Sutton, the Assistant Public Health Director. Please come forward. And any staff that you have brought with you, please come also. And Vice Chair Wizenhunt will actually read the proclamation, and you'll have a chance to accept that.
I just wanted to make sure I was right this time. Proclamation recognizing November 17, 2023 as World Prematurity Awareness Day in Forsyth County, North Carolina. Whereas a developing baby goes through important growth throughout pregnancy, and babies born before 32 weeks have higher rates of death and disability. Whereas in 2021, preterm birth and low birth weight accounted for about 14.8% of infant deaths in the United States. Whereas in 2022, the rate of preterm birth among African American women was about 50% higher than the rate of preterm birth among white or Hispanic women in the United States. Whereas Novant Health, Atrium Health, Wake Forest Baptist, nonprofit agencies, and the Forsyth County Department of Public Health fight for infant health by supporting research, leading programs, and providing education and advocacy. Whereas the Forsyth County Department of Public Health provides programs to address preterm birth and low birth weight to include care management for high-risk pregnancy, nurse family partnership, Healthy Beginnings, Healthy Start Triad Baby Love Plus, care management for at-risk children and women and infants, and children funding. Whereas Novant Health, Adrian Health, Wake Forest Baptist work to improve access to prenatal care for all, increase awareness of the impact of emphatic bias or maternal health care, and raise awareness of the importance of optimal preconception health as a strategy to improve maternal health, reduce preterm birth, infant mortality, and maternal mortality. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners hereby recognize November 17, 2023 as World Prematurity Awareness Day in Forsyth County, North Carolina.
Second that motion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mrs. Sutton, you're welcome to accept it. Any comments you'd like to make or introduce your colleagues?
Thank you so much for your continual support and to our home visiting programs. I have the pleasure of having Ms. Lisa Walker here. She is the nurse program manager over 3 of the home visiting programs that Commissioner just spoke about, as well as Lasagna Total. She's over our Baby Love, Try Baby Love programs. And again, these are home visiting programs, and we continually thank you for your support and all that we do.
Thank you for what you do. You guys can turn around and get a picture here. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
And we actually have a copy of this proclamation also for Atrium Wake Forest, and we will send that to them. The fifth item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the meeting of November 2nd, 2023. Do I have a motion? Motion approved by Commissioner Bessie. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, do we have any calls or cards for the public session?
Mr. Chairman, we do not.
We do not, all right. Okay, very good. Mr. County Manager, we are ready to continue with the remainder of the agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Martin and board members, and good afternoon, guests and everyone. We do have some business items for consideration this afternoon. We have reviewed these in briefing sessions and hopefully have answered all the questions that you got to us. So I'll jump into it. We have a couple of budget and finance items. Agenda item 7 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance. It appropriates $1,008,877 from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services for agreement addenda 117, Public Health Infrastructure Local Workforce Development. And this is a fairly large sum of money, and we can use it for infrastructure investment or recruiting, hiring, training, and supporting the public health staff.
Move approval.
Approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut, second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Very good. Agenda item 8 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance that appropriates $9,015.12 to the Forsyth County Department of Public Health from the North Carolina Community Care Networks for a retroactive Medicaid payment, and this will provide funding for care management for at-risk children.
Is there a motion? Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Agenda item 9 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a Dr. Ann Wolf mini grant from the North Carolina Public Health Association awarded to Forsyth County to support programs that address adolescents' health. You got an associated budget ordinance amendment that appropriates $8,000 for these purposes to enhance and support programs that address adolescent health.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Have a number of contract matters. Item 10 is a resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to the contract with IO Long Construction Company for the Highland Avenue Center upfit project. This is a $3,750,872 project. It does have they have agreed to a 10% MWBE goal, and the change orders authorized under this would be $150,000. We're excited to get this project off the ground.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel, second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? I'd only like to say I appreciate the full explanation of the long journey on this with a number of changes, and particularly regulatory changes at the Highland Avenue Center. I'm glad that that's all behind us, almost. So anyway, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 11 is a resolution authorizing an agreement between Forsyth County and the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education to provide school nursing services and oral health services by the Forsyth County Department of Public Health. And these are services that will be provided under that Public Health Agreement Addenda 351 for child health.
Approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item 12 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing the execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Davidson County on behalf of their respective health departments for Forsyth County to provide laboratory testing services to Davidson County. We do have the capacity to do that. It's in an amount not to exceed $16,000 from Davidson County, and it's mostly for STD testing.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item 13 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing an interlocal agreement with the City of Winston-Salem to provide funding to Forsyth County to assist in the county's efforts to remediate and restore Brushy Fork Creek adjacent to Smith Reynolds Airport. This would provide $300,000 for that project, and we are submitting this over to the City of Winston-Salem. I understand they're going to take this up in their next business cycle, and so hopefully they approve it. If they make any modifications, we'll bring it back to the board, but we're excited to get this project off the ground. So,
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel, second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 14 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract to provide real estate appraisal services. The company is Vincent Valuation LLC, not to exceed $100,000. I think our tax assessor collector is really doing this as a contingency, understanding that staffing issues may come up, and if they do, he'll have this in his back pocket. So,
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 15 is a resolution authorizing execution of a contract to provide electronic payment processing services, including credit card, debit card, and ACH for tax bills. The company is GILA LLC, or MSB Payment Processing. It was competitively bid, and they're the lowest responsive bid.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And the last item is item 16. It's a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor collector in the amount of $641.28.
Move approved.
It's approved by Commissioner Linville. I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And that is it for the formal meeting, Mr. Chairman. So we probably got through it fairly quickly. Let me check, but my suspicion is we can adjourn and go straight into the session. So.
Okay, thank you.
We're good? Okay.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? We'll
So moved.
so move. Second by Commissioner Bessie. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We're ready for the briefing, the November 16th briefing for the board, the actual meeting on December 7th, 2023.
Right, very good. We had one discussion item on the list. We also have Mr. Tommy Krantz from the school system here to talk a little bit about an action that the Board of Education took this week. So why don't I do the GFOA award first, and then since we can brag in front of Tommy about how great our finance department is, and then we'll ask Mr. Krantz to kind of go through things. But I am very, very pleased to notify that we had received yet again GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers of North America, that group, that we qualified for GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. It talks a little bit about, that this really does kind of reflect the efforts of a strong finance department as it leads as it does that important work in county government. And so, Mr. Chairman, would you or one of the commissioners like to go down? You can hand this to Ms. Terry Goodwin, our CFO.
I would be honored to.
All right, very, very
And
good.
by the way, can you give the number of consecutive years we have received that?
I was going to, because,
Let her?
yeah, let's let her jump up there and do that. So, yeah. And if we lost Todd, I'm going to take a picture of it. We'll make sure we get that. So.
Opportunity to brag.
I honestly don't know. 37, 38, something like that.
Yeah, I think I saw it. I think it's in the 30s. We're debating this in the mid-30s, 35 years at least consecutive of receiving this excellence award.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your hard work.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's right. All right. So, Tommy, if you want to come on up, the board members may very well have questions. I know the comments coming into the board, y'all took a very significant action that was, you described it, I think, in front of the Board of Education as kind of a two-part process to try to address classified employees' salaries. So I'll just kind of turn it over to you.
You're exactly right, and thank y'all very much. First, let me apologize for not showing up with a coat and tie on. I didn't realize I'd be here today, so please accept my apology. Basically, what we did is this. So when you look at the classified employees, those are really the backbone of the district. If they don't drive the bus, if they don't cook the meals, if they're not cleaning the schools, if they're not sitting as teacher assistants in classrooms, things don't get done. And they don't get the respect that generally they should. And that's true in a lot of industries. When we began this journey on the compensation plan, the direction was try to right size and make the classified salaries competitive. Make something that they'd be proud of. Make something that was sustainable. And that's a key word in this thing, because too often we do things, it looks great the first year, and then that second and third year it's not so good. So that was the message. That's what we went into. As we began this and we're working on it, the state adopted their budget. And their budget on the certified was anywhere from 3.5% to 14.9%. The average was about 4.15. The classified typically mirror what the state did. So that would be 4%. Then the state said, we think on the bus drivers, I've yet to see a definition, was that everybody in transportation or not, but we want you to give another 2%, so their salary increase would be 6%, and all classified would be 4%. Knowing that there would be a strong desire and a competition between our transportation department and our maintenance department. A lot of the mechanical skills and the knowledge that they bring are very similar. So then it was, what could we do for 6% inside of the maintenance side? Then I knew it was going to be, they want all classified to get 6%. We said, all right, what's that going to look like? And we did. Then we said, well, did we really give the transportation what they wanted? So of the 6, we tried to become 8. And the maintenance and the transportation got 8. Now, if you look at the dollars, it's about $4.3 million on local funds. Those funds took the budget, which I'll graciously adopted, and increased A2 with $1 million of that, as I understood it, in reserve. We didn't touch that because the agreement we had, both verbally as well as later, was that we needed to have a comprehensive plan to present to y'all. And this is one part of that plan, but that's not the full plan. And so if you look at the budget, there was 3 requests. We had the $4.4 million that was classified from 2 years ago. Plus we had the $2 million in the custodial side and then $660,000 in security. So the funds that were in that $4.4 million is basically the funds we used to fund the increase. Now, how did we achieve that? Remember when we said at the beginning that our numbers, it was difficult to tell where we were spending money. And then we kept digging and digging and digging and digging and really making sure we maximize the funding sources we have available. The best way to do that is to make certain that we have people in the state budget and not in local. We got it down to 833 last year with the numbers, and that was the lowest in the last 5 years plus. And this year I'll be below that. Doing that allowed the local dollars to get reshifted. So we did. With the board, and then we said, how do we remain competitive? Because Guilford County is mirroring us right now. When we say raise it $1, they're going to raise it $1.25 to $1.50. They're trying to stay slightly ahead of our numbers. And they do a tiered structure of every 2 steps. Well, when you look at what the state came out with their salary plan, they're getting rid of steps on the classified. And they never have. We did for 3 of our pay bands. But then for the majority of our classified pay bands, there were no steps. There was just a pay band. And that's what the state's going to, a universal pay band. Okay? So we've mirrored that. We had them in the max, and we ended up doing the recommendation was 8% for transportation, 8% for maintenance, 6% for all classified, and if you are a director or above, so the higher price paid employees is 4%. So that's your 4, 6, and 8. Now, the board adopted that. We are working to pay the retro out by the end of the month. We are working to get the November check with the correct pay rate in it, and we will accomplish all of this. And then on people who are mid-month, so we do 2, mid-month and end of the month. The mid-month will get their retro on November 30th. They'll get in their December regular check, their new rated, what their regular checks will look like. And that's basically, now the next steps for us, I'll work with Mr. Crutchfield and do I call it the market component, because now we got to address compression. We've done somewhat. We've made it competitive. But the second component is we had rates, and this was from the district, where we kept paying people the same rate over and over and over and just making the hole bigger and bigger and bigger. And so if you looked at grade 50, which was our school nutrition employees, I came in, we raised the rate to $15 an hour a couple years ago. If I was at step 0 or if I was at step 19, I was getting paid $15 an hour. So I've been there 15 years. I'm getting $15. Somebody brand new with no experience is getting $15 an hour. That's what made everything inequitable within the district on our salary scales. And we saw the same thing with some of our bus driving positions. Now, under Mr. Martin, there was a policy adopted that from pay grade to pay grade, it should have been a 5% growth differential. And that had been evaporated over time. And so then you saw the same pay rates across some of the grades as I went from 50 to 51 to 52. So now the next step is how do we break apart that? And that's where we'll come back to you with that plan and have this as a comprehensive to see if there's any, have we achieved the goals that Mr. Martin and y'all as a board asked us to do, with the whole plan. And then does that meet the objective? And then see what's the best use of the $1 million reserve, if any. I hope to accomplish that goal, but that's our plan.
Questions? I've got a couple, but if somebody else wants to jump in. It may be easier for me to jump into it, and then they can think about it during that time.
Okay.
I think I have more or less followed what you explained, but a part that I want to sort of, you mentioned particularly this counting positions, which you mentioned you're down to whatever it was, 866 or 800. That also includes the licensed teachers. So I assume that 866 is...
That's just locally funded.
That's locally funded, but is that all locally classified, or does it also include
some
teachers?
Some are classified, particularly in the transportation arena, are funded under state. The bulk of classified is funded under local.
This is what I want to ask. In that 800 number, are there any locally paid teachers?
Yes.
And so how many locally paid classified employees are impacted by this current change?
All classified employees, no matter their funding source.
I got it. I just simply want to know of the local group. We're all concerned about local dollars. Of the locally paid employees, how many of them are classified?
You would have your maintenance, the drivers that drive the white and blue, your administrative team that's on the classified, that over transportation and maintenance. So of that 800 plus, you would have approximately 450 to 500 that'll be classified.
Okay.
Your teachers' assistants, you'll have some of those where there's above the numbers. But the bulk of your teachers' assistants get funded out of state.
All right, so the second question on that, I've sort of got that, you're guessing about 450, is that in making to take the state money, particularly to go to the 6%, and you made it 8%, particularly on I assume on the drivers, and you are talking about bus mechanics.
Yes, sir.
We're not talking about maintenance, we're talking about bus maintenance.
Right.
Is what we're talking about, mechanics. Did it require local dollars in addition to the state dollars in order to make that work for these state-funded people? Do they have a part of their salary now that's local as a result of that?
Very few of our employees are split within the funds. Okay?
I guess my question is, are there any that are split?
Not in below a director level. When I start getting into some of the higher paid employees in the district, they are split. That's where I see the bulk of the splitting occur.
So did that amount of local dollars in the people above director, did that amount of dollars, local dollars, go up also?
Yes.
And that's included in your total of $4 million?
4.2 million, yes, sir.
So that's in there. So go back and refer, because I think what I heard you say is that you looked at your available local resources to pay for this. And I heard $2 million for custodians. Was that the $2 million you had budgeted for basically your contract cleaning services?
Correct.
And so you moved that into classified employee salaries?
No, that's good. The 2 million on the custodial are going toward the custodial services themselves.
Okay, so I'm just trying to, did you actually have 4 million plus whatever that number is in your budget that we approved back last June? Did you have that, was that the number you were working with? I mean, I'm just
Say
trying.
that again, because I could make that answer a lot of ways.
Well, when we went through the budget process, we spent a fair amount of time talking about locally paid teacher cost.
Right.
And then we were talking, and part of the issue was getting these numbers is, well, what is the cost on classified? Because you asked us specifically for classified pay dollars.
Correct.
And you had a number that ultimately, we agreed to this, to delay this $1 million if you get the market stairs. And that would be sort of for a later. So the part that actually was included in the FY24 budget, did it include that $4 million in locally paid classified employees? That's what I'm trying to get at.
The $4 million that's the increase was in the locally
in the budget.
Funded budget.
Locally funded classified pay budget.
And I can only say the locally funded budget. Yes, the majority of it's going to be classified, but I'm not going to sit here and you know, that's not a statistic that's been asked. So I'm not going to try to BS you.
So what I'm trying to get at is, you have some local teacher money pay increases that has been taken away from teachers and moved into classified, or did it come from some other places in your budget?
No, because what's happened is if I was a teacher and I was funded out of locally funds,
right?
Okay, then you're in the local funds and you're in their percentage growth. Okay, if I was a teacher that was split, okay, so say an assistant principal, those are good ones, and there's only X number funded in state, I'm getting picked up now in the local funds, which I've been getting picked up in local funds.
Right.
So nothing's gotten moved, but anybody that was in local funds when we were doing the budget, as we presented it to y'all, still is in local funds, and that's what was budgeted for with the increase. Now, no classified, the assistant principals obviously are coming off of the state salary schedule. So they're not in the percentage other than the part that I have to fund their share, that would be in the local funds. Everything else would be, you know, in the appropriate funding source of state.
I guess what I'm just, I guess I'm surprised, I'll start with that. I'm surprised
That we got to that
that
point.
the amount of money that was in your budget, that we approved, but not what you requested, what we approved last May, I'm surprised that that amount in local funds is sufficient to implement what you just described that would be, local, that would be, I realize you got a lot of state money in that. So, but the local amount, I'm surprised that that would be the same.
We were,
or equal to.
we were as well, as we were going through the analysis. But
So if I-
we have tied this down very, very tight.
So would it be fair to say that the reason it worked, and not being surprised, was because you had more employees that you could actually move to state? You were actually able to have more employees covered by the state that you had thought were going to be locally paid?
Well, let me say it this way. You're correct, but let me say it this way. If you recall, when I first got here, I said this district really doesn't know where they're spending their dollars at.
Yes, I remember that.
And we tore it apart, and I'm not saying we're there yet. Okay? But as we zeroed in on where dollars were spent, and I'm going to call it an efficiency factor. We found dollars that should have been and were redirected into salaries.
Efficiencies from other places.
Efficiencies from how we're spending the dollars and what was the return on those in dollars and where they should have been going to. And really understanding, if you looked at what you as a county have done, and I've looked, as you and I have talked about, historicals. As a county, y'all put in a substantial sum of money over the last, I think it's 10 to 20 years I looked. But I'm vague. I wasn't prepared to go into this detail today. But y'all put in a substantial sum of money. I think the money was spent on the education, but now it's being spent or redirected to where it makes the return, and it was into the salaries.
Okay, I think and so essentially, I get it. You basically made this balance of different things, as you described, efficiencies elsewhere in the budget, namely, not exactly, you refined your budget costs or what is it going to take to do these things, and you had money left over to do that. I think I'm hearing you say that.
You're correct. Now the next step this year is getting it even finer and really getting down to what's other, you know very well, there's more efficiencies I'll squeeze out of this thing this year.
Very possible. I'm monopolized, but I have just basically sort of one other question. I saw your scale that basically you go from your I guess your year, they're not bands, I guess.
You talk about that 3.
It goes from 0 to 10%.
Right.
So that 0 to 10% part on your, that's going to, long-term, we're talking about sustainability now.
Right.
The long-term on that, that's going to be, that can get because because I actually watched that part of your board meeting, and one of the questions that was asked was that if the state did, let's say the state provides a 3% raise overall average for classified employees, and if you're a person that's qualified now and that 10%, is the 10% bump, the 3% state's going to be applied.
Right.
Then is that 10% bump going to be on the 3% or on what the total salary?
Total.
The total.
That's the intent.
So that ends up costing some money if depending on the distribution of your staff.
Correct.
And I would think that in your classified staff distribution, it is probably more front-loaded on inexperienced staff versus the 20 to 30 year experience.
Yes, sir.
And which in that case makes it more likely that you'd be able to afford it. And I guess I want to know, did you do any modeling on how that staff sort of changes? Because my suspicion is the staff is getting younger every year over an average of the classified employees. And then in that case, you don't feel quite as stretched, to do that. I'm just trying to get at.
And you're exactly correct.
I'm trying to get at your comfort level of being able to sustain what you just did, which really is providing some raises beyond the state level forever for employees that fall into that category. So I mean, that can be that could be a big thing 5 and 10 years from now.
And I agree with everything you said. And it was many sleepless nights trying to look at that and really getting to a comfort level.
So
Where-
you're at a comfort level with that.
Yes, sir. Because here's where we'll get it. Right now, we're not keeping employees in that 20, 25, and 30 category. Our employees are looking in the classified paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of times that's just to survive, but they look at it as paycheck. The district offers great benefits, the health care, the retirement, and we don't get credit for that as we retain staff and compete in the private sector. The private sector doesn't do that. What this also gives is that drive to keep our staff, and we're not returning it and continuing the training and all the upfront costs it takes to have that turnover of staff. Our buildings are older. There's never enough money to address all the facilities in any public entity. No matter how much everybody says things and how much everybody tries, there's never enough money to do it. Okay? If we keep our most senior employees, they know the building. They know the routes. They know how to get the job done. I save up front because I'm not doing the training. And I think we have a much happier workforce that also will drive a better product, facilities-wise, to the thing. Now, time's going to tell if I'm right or wrong. But I think it's going to work. And I think it's something that the whole county can be proud of. But that's Tommy's opinion.
Certainly, we hope so.
I hope so,
I
too.
mean, that's kind of that's the bottom line piece. I'm going to stop and let other folks, I have an unrelated question at the end, there's at least one more, but
Okay.
I want other people to have an opportunity.
I do have some questions, if I may. I'm not trying to look the 5 chess moves down the road. I have a hard enough time focusing on the immediate impacts, and so I have some clarifying questions. I believe I heard you basically say in response to Chair Martin's questions that some bus drivers are considered state paid and some bus drivers are considered locally.
The bulk of transportation is funded out of the state funds.
But some would be classified as state paid staff and some would be classified as locally paid staff?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, when you described what the General Assembly did in their budget, which was adopted substantially after our budget, so,
Yes, sir.
they had an opportunity to look at the wisdom of our local budget. They decided that classified employees categorically should have a 6% raise. Is that?
Just drivers.
Just bus drivers.
Just bus drivers.
I'm sorry. Bus drivers. And what you're doing through the plan that the school board just adopted is upping that by 2% and saying the bus drivers and the bus maintenance employees get an 8% raise, yes?
Correct.
Now,
Well, but also, so you did 2% on the drivers, but you did 4% on all the rest of the transportation team.
on the maintenance team, okay. Now, does that 8% raise apply to drivers and bus maintenance staff, regardless of whether the position is classified as a state or a local one?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And the same, similarly, when you're talking about teacher salary supplements, that Forsyth County has approved for teachers, that applies to teachers whether they are state or local. So it's apples to apples between, certified staff and classified staff on who gets those raises.
Right. You got one with supplements and you got one with the bumps.
Right.
Okay.
So while I respect the importance of knowing how many local positions there are and how many state positions there are, and it has multiple implications, some of which I haven't quite gotten yet. I'm still the new kid. The bottom line is that you're talking about salaries for all the drivers and salaries for all the the bus maintenance right here, okay. And, with that understanding, let me just say that I am pleased to see our drivers and our bus maintenance folks getting, I understand, effective this calendar year, an 8% raise for
Correct.
hitting those starting salaries.
Correct.
Particularly important, okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Tom?
Chair Martin, I don't have a question. I do want to share with the public my perspective from being a public school educator for over 20 years. So I definitely understand where Dr. Martin is coming from when we go in the weeds. When you guys come here, it's just habitual, especially based on where he was as the former superintendent. And it's not out of a place, in my opinion, of trying to be unhelpful. It is out of a place of, I have some experience in it. Maybe we can help to move this train forward. But I do want to especially thank you, Tommy, for coming in to our school district and at least trying to water the seeds and get some flowers to grow from with our budget. Because what I would tell you, in all authenticity, this was not, I want the public to know, a meeting that was in private. When I got on the school board, my first year, the state came and said, we're getting ready to take you all over with your finances. So we have been working diligently to make sure that we have balanced budgets. And what you're doing right now, I think, is trying to help us now consider how can you not only just have the balanced budget, which that's just state law, you have to have a balanced budget, but you need to think about being considerate of how we can build in our community decent, livable wages for those who make, less than, that's what I would say considered classified. So I want us to be very mindful about when we say, we don't know what we're spending on. That statement is out of context, in my opinion, because we do know what we're spending on. It's just that there are a lot of variables. And the main one, I will say, this is not to blame anybody, but anybody in North Carolina and deals with public schools know that the budgeting process for North Carolina public schools is like one big puzzle and maze. And everyone from a different state that comes here and try to become CFO, that's one of their main kind of, suggestions that maybe North Carolina need to consider a different way that we hold schools accountable with the budgeting process. And so, again, I just want the public to know that there are, different variables that creates the complications, not just in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, but all throughout the state with public schools. And that means that the county commissioners, state legislators, the folk at the school board, we all have to be more patient with one another, less, accusatory with one another. And also, I think, being more progressive, meaning we're sitting in the room trying to figure it out, because I think we all trying to get to the same thing.
Other comments?
Yes. So, Tommy, I wanted to say, I will praise your pond today. How about that? So, we attended the State of Education on yesterday, and we saw that you had a $745 million budget that, again, was balanced. So I was appreciative to see that. Also, how the needle has been moved in terms of our students in the failing schools. So you can share with the Board of Education. For me, I had an intuition that someone like you needed to be in that space to figure out where the holes or the pots, holes and all those things were. So I'm grateful to have you, and thank you so very much for what you continue to do for the Board of Education and our citizens here in Forsyth County. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
I knew that was something going on, but I'm glad that you're here, so I appreciate you.
Other comments? I got one last question.
Yes, sir.
And it really has to do, as you, in that modeling and thinking ahead, whatever local dollars additionally have gone into figuring this out, and in subsequent years, there's going to be that additional, that 24% load for retirement.
Right.
That's going to be a part of that. And that's not inconsequential when it's 24% of additional, that when you're given that extra 10% of the total salary that's locally paid for the most experienced, it's 10%, it's that 10% plus 24% of that additional amount into the retirement system, which is another part of that huge modeling issue. And I happened to watch the agenda item before yours on the board meeting. This is where it's a little off topic, which is comparing switching to 10 schools going to go with basically custodial services that you all manage and provide. And I did see on the public meeting their chart, and I really was sitting there wondering, because the reason the contract cleaning works and has worked financially is because you're dealing with part-time, the contract cleaning people are working with typically part-time employees or not, and they're not paying a 24% match in retirement. So I'm just curious, in that analysis for this 10 schools, I just want to know if you provided the dollars, the number on what the real cost of those salaries is going to be.
We passed along, yes, sir, we were a part of the analysis. And from my side, it's really 33%, because you got the Social Security component.
Absolutely, on top of that.
So we say it's at 33%. And you're right, the outside contractor, for our healthcare, which is a great healthcare plan, instead of it being 33% on every dollar we pay an employee, it's really 50 cents when you add the health insurance component.
Yes.
That's about 17 cents.
Yes.
And I expect that both healthcare and retirement are going to continue to increase. I wish I had the crystal ball and knew exactly how much. I've used 3 to 5% in different models. But I do believe they're both going to continue to increase, and I think that's where things will get tighter and tighter and tighter.
Good. And so you were a part of that, and you believe that those numbers accurately portrayed the actual cost?
Yes, sir.
of taking
It's
over?
very doable. It's very doable.
And one thing that was not in that presentation was, what does it cost them to do those 10 schools right now with a contract cleaning service?
Well, and coming out the gate, it's about equal, but then they had things got crazy, from a cleaning standpoint that resulted in this situation. So our actual costs are higher, because when they got into the summer, they weren't, getting as far along as they needed to, and then all of a sudden we had to bring in other companies to assist just to get schools open.
Right. But you're saying the money is basically equal?
Right now it's equal, but we're watching it very, very closely. We're watching it very closely.
Well, sounds like if you had to supplement a vendor to get schools ready to open, I'd probably just make a comment that the vendor you had wasn't a very good vendor. I mean,
I agree.
That's like a breach of
I
contract.
agree with
That's
that.
like a breach. It's like you don't pay them anymore.
But and I think the administration addressed it, because it was tight. You're getting closer to start.
Oh yeah, you got to open school.
You got to open school.
I'm not arguing that. Anyway, that's enough. We've talked enough.
But let me say this.
I don't want to be sorry. Obviously, I'm in the weeds, but I will make a comment to
But I do
Commissioner.
wanna-
I got a comment to Commissioner Woodbury here.
But let me say this. Oh, okay.
Essentially, if things go awry in the future and not talk about some of these kind of things, this board will end up with a request of a huge bailout.
Right.
And the question becomes one, are we just prepared to be a blank check on that if you don't have those things? And when the finance officer admits, when he first comes in, I can't figure out these kind of things, it does not instill confidence in terms of thinking that this is going to be, but that we're ready for this. So I'm nothing disparaging about Tommy. I appreciate the work that he's done. He's been very open about it, been nothing but complimentary of that. And I think you've got your HR folks now working together, and you're getting, that's critical, and I think you're getting some of that
Correct.
worked out. I just can't help but ask, I can't help but ask those questions in terms of, in 5 years, is it going to be, whoops, look what we've got here now.
And we're looking at.
So I think that's being fiscally responsible
Correct.
from our standpoint.
And that's what we do. I mean, you can't just look at what tomorrow's going to be. You got to look 5 and 10 years out. So.
Exactly.
we're doing that.
Anyway,
But
I apologize.
From my side and from the school system, let me say thank you, because y'all do your fair share. You do give a lot to the school systems, and it has been a pleasure, even though sometimes I get a little hot on the seat up here. But it's been a pleasure to work with y'all, and I look forward to going forward. All right?
All righty.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Chair Martin, I will, I guess, as the old folks say, hold my tongue because I'm reading the face of Vice Chair. You can go on, Tommy. I wasn't saying anything to you, but I appreciate your willingness to try to wrap that conversation up, and I get the fiscal responsibility of it, but we'll move on to the next thing. Thank you.
If I can say just one very brief thing, lest my comments a few minutes ago be misinterpreted, I'm glad to see all the classified staff getting an increase. I just noted the bus driver situation because it was one that had been called to our attention so acutely as a shortage in staff that was affecting the students broadly. Thank you.
Good.
All righty.
All right, thank you. And Tommy, thank you for coming on short notice. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so this is in preparation for the December 7th formal meeting. It is that time of the year where the organizational meeting's held, so you'll see where we've got election chair and vice chair, and then the meeting schedule. And I think, Madam Clerk, you have provided the meeting schedule, so you've seen that. We tried to take into account the conferences and the holidays and all that as we went into next year. And so you'll have that in front of you to consider. We do have a couple of public hearing items that we wanted to brief for in detail as is our practice. And then I did want to talk about one item or a couple of items just related to the inflation reserve and some construction projects. So the first one is a public hearing on a petition to close.
Dudley, excuse me, please.
Sure.
But if you're going to go into all that detail, could we take a 5-minute break?
Yep, absolutely. As long as the
5-minute
chairman
recess.
says so.
Thank you. Back in business, thank you.
All right, very good.
They will get up on top of something.
All right, so we do have a couple of public hearing matters for the meeting on December 7th. The first one is a public hearing on the petition to close a portion of Morris Street. So Shayla's going to come up and review that very quickly.
Hello again. And can I just take a second to say thank you all for recognizing World Premature Day, because I have both my daughters were 2 months premature and come out only 3 and 4 pounds. So it's close to my heart. So I just want to take a second to thank you all. All right, so.
And they
it is
are
the
darling, healthy children.
They are,
Yes.
thanks to Wake Forest Baptist. They are thriving. No, they're not that small. 2 and 1, not that small. All right, so 'tis the season for street closings, I guess, so we'll go on to the next one. This is the last portion of Morris Street. The petition was actually submitted by Red Pill Partners LLC. I know that it was mentioned last time that there is a portion within Forsyth County and a portion within Walkertown city limits. We did receive communication today from Walkertown that they will close their portion after our portion has been closed. Signs have already been placed. They were placed out November 6th, notifying the public. The owners do on both sides of this portion, so they're requesting to close this area for developmental purposes. And honestly, if you look out there, it's basically just dirt road anyways at that portion. Here is just circling that on the imagery, and then here's the plan showing, and I'll just go ahead to the Zoom part. This top 145 feet is within Walkertown, and this additional is the portion within Forsyth County. Planning found that there were no issues to this part being closed, and there are no other owners that would be impacted. And that is all, if there are any questions.
Any questions?
Just on the aerial pictures that you showed, there is a sort of a diagonal extending right to the left. Is that a stream or is that a transmission line?
Transmission line, I believe.
Where is, this is closed, where is the access to this property is all in question in here? Is it New Walkertown Road? Does that?
So actually, the portion that's going to be closed does not impact the Morris Street part that's coming off New Walkertown. So as you're coming in, there's a paved portion that 3 residents, and then I believe it's Ace Hardware. They still have all that. The only part that's being closed is, again, the gravel piece that is beyond those properties and that entrance point.
Is the area in there of land, is it under Walkertown or the county jurisdiction, zoning jurisdiction?
I believe there's 2 portions, so it's within Walkertown limits at this part, and then our zoning at the bottom, I believe.
According to that map, you go, it's pretty good undeveloped area of land in there.
And we didn't get, I did ask Matthew, our addressing coordinator, if there were any documentation on what the actual development was going to be or proposed, and he said the documents we received were vague. I don't know if Chris has received any additional.
There is an approved subdivision that is basically the project that is out there, and I can't remember the zoning. It was, this project was approved probably sometime in the last 12 to 18 months, but it's a subdivision. There could be some townhomes. I can't exactly remember, but if so, all the zoning was in place for it. But the access will be off New Walkertown Road, and I believe even with this closure that I believe there might be an emergency access that would come off Morris, but the public road in and of itself will be closed because Morris is such a substandard street. There really isn't any way to improve it. So that's where planning didn't have an issue with it. But the actual project comes off of New Walkertown Road, probably quarter to a third of a mile down New Walkertown from Old Hollow, back to the southwest.
Well, isn't the current zoning, isn't the density pretty high?
Again, I hate to speculate. I don't have the plan in front of me, but it's definitely a dense project, but I don't think it's anything like RM18 or RM12. At the most, it would be like 8 units to the acre, but it's probably 5.
Is sewer available to it?
Again, Commissioner Lidwell, I'm not exactly sure. The project has already been approved. It's gone through the proper approval procedures. I'm assuming it's probably has sewer to it, but I can't sit here and definitively say.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. The other item that has a public hearing is a zoning petition of Braxton Charles LLC. I'll turn it over to Chris Murphy to review.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the Commissioners. I am going to brief this item, but I will not be here for the next 2 meetings because I actually have a conflict on the 7th because I have to be at a City Zoning Board of Adjustment appeal. So Kirk will be here, but I will brief him and have him perhaps be prepared to talk about the other item that you just asked questions on. For case F1633, this is a request to rezone 3.4 acres located on the north side of Ogden School Road, west of Davis Ridge Drive, from RS9S back to general use AG. This piece of property came in for rezoning about a year ago. There, the subject property is shown in the GMA3 growth management area there in the southeastern part of the county. The piece of property highlighted in yellow here is the piece of property that they're requesting to rezone from RS9S back to AG. The request is the petitioner on that original request has worked with this property owner, and this property owner is actually going to swap out some other land that he owns, that he and his, I'm not sure if it's a husband and wife, it's just him, if it's a group. They own some other property that they're going to do a land swap with the developer, Mr. Greg Garrett, and then that's going to be incorporated into a project within the town of Kernersville. So this piece of property is, they want this to go back to general use AG. This is the subject property, again, shown outlined in yellow on the aerial photo. This is looking at the subject view of the subject properties to the left. Look, it's looking east along Ogden School Road. Subject property to the left. This is looking to the northwest along Ogden School Road. The subject property would be on the right. This is looking at the subject property from Ogden School Road, again looking to the north. This is looking to the south. This project was also approved at the same time as the RS9S rezoning that we're speaking of. I believe this was rezoned to RS15S. But again, this is a single-family subdivision that's currently under construction there on the south side of Ogden School Road. Looking at the Southeast Forsyth County area plan, it does recommend this for large lot residential, 0 to 8 units per acre. You do see it there to the southeast of Weldon, and like I said, I believe this is a land swap where they're looking to incorporate some additional property into the Weldon development there within the town of Kernersville. The subject property surrounding context is predominantly rural with some suburban characteristics. To the north and northeast of the subject property is rural property already that is zoned AG. Of course, this subject property is RS9S, as well as the property to the west and to the south across Ogden School Road is RS15S. The request, the planning board found that the request was generally consistent with legacy and the Southeast Forsyth County area plan update. The property is located within GMA3, but it was previously zoned AG and they're wanting to put it back AG, so the planning board felt like that was a reasonable request, and it does satisfy some of those recommendations within the area plan. The proposed district is compatible with the adjacent uses and zoning, and the request does constitute a down zoning of the property from the RS9S back to AG. This was heard by the planning board at their October 12th, 2023 public hearing. There were no speakers in opposition, and following the public hearing, the planning board did unanimously recommend approval of this request. So with
Isn't that unusual for anybody? Well, I've seen it just very, not often at all. It's unusual when somebody wants to go the other way. Usually it's just unusual.
Something that goes through the process to being rezoned, it's not very likely. It doesn't happen often. It does happen sometimes. We see it a lot for preliminary subdivisions. Let's say you have a piece of property that is zoned RS9, but it doesn't have a subdivision plan already approved on it. And they submit a subdivision plan that goes to the planning board. Well, then for, whatever reason, there's a piece of that project they want to take out. They have to go back to the planning board to ask for that preliminary subdivision approval to be removed from that piece of the property. And we probably do 3 or 4 of those a year. So it's not that unusual. It's just unusual that they were doing it to something that they actually rezoned. All right.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so looking at the rest of this agenda, I'll go through most of them fairly briefly, fairly quickly, because we are working to finalize those. The ones that I wanted to pay particular attention to are actually items 15, 16, and 17. So as you know, we've been struggling with inflationary impacts to all kinds of capital projects. There are 2 that are sort of right in front of us that we need to make a decision about what we're going to do. And so at your direction, Budget and Finance worked to look at all of the projects that we are now completing, or the ones that are pretty close. And I said, let's go through those. Some of those we've had budget savings in. The other fortunate impact is that we're actually, the interest rates have gone to a place where the interest earnings on those projects are going to help to soften kind of some of this. And so I really appreciate the work of Finance and Budget in doing this. And so I'm going to ask Kyle to come up. And so the part of this, the 2 projects that are in front of us are the Lock project, which we are opening on Friday, I believe, Damon. And so we're going to try to get this one teed up so that we can move quickly on the Lock project. The other one that's been out there a long time is the Tanglewood Clubhouse project. We were very fortunate to receive a substantial state appropriation for that project, and we're trying to close the gap on that one now. The builder, they had submitted a GMP, and it was ready for the board's consideration, Damon, back in August? It has been quite a few months.
It was back in the summer.
Yeah, so they submitted it. The question to them was that we were going to wait on the state budget to come back because we could not move forward with that project at that point in time. They, to my understanding, have held those estimates and those, because they went out for bid and they've got commitments from their subcontractors on these, and so they held those long enough that those numbers are still good. Is that correct?
Some of them. So they did go back out and have refreshed the numbers.
Okay.
So they are, some of them are up, some of them are down, but it's slightly higher than what it was back in August.
Okay. So, and that's numbers are reflected in what
That's right.
what Kyle's bringing to you. So we're not really going to go into detail about the project today. We can if you want us to, but we're really going to push that off to next week. But I wanted Kyle to show what he is doing, sort of where the relief's coming from. And there's, when we got through with it, the good news was there's not only sufficient interest earnings and project underspends to cover the Lock project and the Clubhouse project. And I think and those dollars are coming from sources that will be, the source kind of connects up with the parts and those kinds of things. So, but there's also a little over $3 million that's available in a reserve as we move forward with projects as we deal with inflationary pressure. So when Kyle first described it, I said, we need to put this in some kind of chart so that we can a flow chart we can kind of see. And he did a great job. It's still fairly complicated, and I'm going to let Kyle go through it. As I looked at it, what made the most sense for me to look at are the blue arrows in the words there, because some of this other stuff really does get into the weeds. But we wanted to be crystal clear and transparent about how these dollars will need to be moved around. And they need to be moved around because some of the dollars in the projects had, we had bond finance projects. And so we're trying to meet bond covenants, and you got to move them into the right place so that you follow those rules. So this is complicated. It's that way out of some necessity to make sure we're compliant with bond issuance covenants. But with that, I'll turn it over to Kyle. So.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So the item 15, it's got a lot of moving parts, and what I've done with this chart is try to reflect a little bit of what we're doing. And so when you'll remember back to when we set up the court facility CPO, it was established with almost $116 million of bond proceeds from limit obligation bonds, and those LOBs were advertised. They were for court facilities or a children's museum, I think also for the airport. We actually only issued, for the courthouse, we actually only issued $106.3 billion, essentially, because there were some savings. The contract costs came in so much better at the time. In addition to that, there were some contingency funds set up in the project that are not going to have to be used. And so based on savings and of those contingency, there's $7 million that we believe we can reallocate. And then there was a $1.25 million of interest earnings that can be appropriated as well. And so what we're doing first is we're going to transfer that $8.2 million, which is again the savings of the $7 million plus the $1.25 in interest earnings, transfer that to the Caladium CPO. And as you'll recall, the Caladium CPO is funded significantly with transfers from the general fund, as well as some sales of property, some grants, and some intergovernmental revenue, and a smaller amount, but there were some bond proceeds as well that were included in there. And so what we're going to do once we transfer the 8.25 from the court facilities into Caladium is we will transfer 8.25 back to the general fund, and that basically represents part of that $13.9 million that was already transferred from the general fund into Caladium. So we're basically, those funds have fewer restrictions on them. And so we're really, so again, we're going to move the 8.2 from the court facility to Caladium, and then we're going to move that 8.25 from Caladium back into the general fund. Just to be really clear, again, it's really because of the fewer restrictions from the general fund funding. And what we'll do then, or what we would recommend doing, is transferring $3,630,990 to an inflation reserve. We could put that in this 22 PAYGO CPO. Set aside $2 million is our estimate for the LEDC locks. Again, I think we'll have a better number on that tomorrow. And then transfers $2,619,010 to the 2019 PAYGO CPO for the Tanglewood Clubhouse project. And so it's a lot of moving parts there. And then for the Tanglewood Clubhouse project, we have some additional parts. Do you want me to go through that as well?
Yeah.
Or?
Go
Okay.
ahead. That'll be fine. Now you'll see the agenda items have all these financial transactions, and then they have the award of the GMP the award for the low bid, and then also for the GMP for Tanglewood. And so we can go into it's kind of the project specific piece of both of those when we come back, because we'll have the lock information back in.
Yeah. And so that $2.619 million that I had just mentioned that was coming as part of the transfer from the court facilities to the Caladium to general fund, that's going to go again back into this 2019 PAYGO. Then we're going to appropriate some unallocated interest earnings of almost $1.2 million in our county facilities fund and transfer that to the PAYGO project for the Tanglewood project. The 2020 PAYGO CPO has about $51,000 of interest earnings And then there is a budget reserve that was set aside for, I believe it was debt avoidance or inflation that has gone, it had been more, but it's been reduced to $50,461 through board actions. And so that's between the interest earnings and the savings in that project, or not the savings, but the inflation reserve in there, that's another $100,000 that'll go to the 2019 CPO. And then the 2021 PAYGO, almost $30,000 of interest earnings. Another budget reserve that was set aside for inflation. We have about $239,000 available, so there's $270,000. And then that 2022 PAYGO CPO will transfer this $285,000 to the 2019 PAYGO CPO. And so with the 2019 PAYGO CPO, that being said, there was already $4.5 million in that CPO for the clubhouse. This accepts that transfer of $4 million. Basically, all that adds up to $4,441,257. It also appropriates $4 million that the county is receiving from the state budget this past cycle, and some interest earnings. And you get for the Tanglewood project. In this CPO, there's $13.1 million as a result. And then other funds that have already been identified, the board's already acted on. Again, in the 2016 bond referendum, there was $1.6 million for the clubhouse. And then there was $671,000 in the 2018 two-thirds CPO and the $600,000 in the 2020 two-thirds CPO for the project. And that gets you to a total amount of, I don't have it with me, but it's a little over $15 million, which is the number that you saw, I believe, at the last meeting cycle for the clubhouse project.
About 15.8, if I remember correctly. So
it's a lot of moving parts, and I know it's confusing, but I'm happy to try and answer questions either now or over the next couple of weeks. Or
Let me just see if I'm sort of reading this right. Has the cost of the Tanglewood Clubhouse project essentially tripled from the 2019 estimate?
So,
Yes.
So originally it was for a substantial rehab work. And then back prior to the pandemic, we said, well, we just built two 20,000 square foot libraries for $6 million. So if we added money to the $4.6 million, we could replace it. Well, then, the pandemic happened and costs started going up, and it has been more. And then for this project also, that's a little different than the library projects, was we have to have a temporary clubhouse, whereas for Kernersville and Clemens, they just stayed in their facilities because we built on new ground. And then there's going to be substantial demolition on this project to the tune of about, demolition earthwork, about $2 million as we remove the existing clubhouse. Then there's going to be a lot of fill and grading associated with it that's a little different.
And in 2016, was the estimate of the rehab 1.6 million? Or was that known at the time it would only be a fraction of the cost involved?
So not really unlike Caladium, because Caladium started off as about $1 million project down the hill, and just over a long period of time grew, and then they located it where it is, obviously, and so this project is very similar to that. When it was first envisioned, it was a rehab of the current facility, and we started putting money, to try to do that, and really the question became, is the building envelope in the facility, should it be, do we put money in that facility? How much money do we put in that facility? And so, at the point where the decision was made that it just, we really didn't make any sense to try to renovate where we are. The project, from the last time the board said let's move on it, it was about an $11 million project. And so we are at about a little shy of $16 million. When we went and stepped out on this, the cost estimate on it was about $11 million, and the project's come in about $16 million. We started doing value engineering, and the biggest area where we can do value engineering on is to actually take the cart storage underneath it out and move it into a separate, very inexpensive warehouse. From a operational perspective, you lose that $2 million cost you more than it's worth to move it out. And so that's sort of the place we're at in the project. But yes, it is there's a huge amount of inflation movement in this, and there was a lot of scope change throughout this whole thing. So it's a very expensive project, which is, we work to try to find a solution if we want to move forward on it. If we don't want to move forward on it, then.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, if you go up to the top of the first page, you can see that traditionally we've had a CPO for major projects like this, like the courthouse and the Caladium. As I understand it, we don't have a CPO for Tanglewood Clubhouse, so it's very complicated.
Yeah.
And that may be something the board wishes to consider, because there's money coming from everywhere. And the statutes say that for a CPO, you're required to identify where the money's coming from before you start with it. And so that would be something that's done typically in a CPO.
Well, yeah, but probably, I think that, back to your question, Mr. Bessie, I think it's what the architect was asked to design, in my opinion, did not happen. And that's been the heartburn side for me on this project. I don't doubt, and there's certainly no way you could take the original budget given to the architect doing this work with our construction management at-risk issue, that inflation has not accounted for all these differences. There's clearly some design issues that were not some things, whatever. We didn't get it. We got a way more expensive building design than we asked for. And that's true. created some problems. Yeah. And I have a lot of heartburn about this project.
Yeah, I do too, and it is frustrating, and I conveyed to Arthur Samet that very idea that this is it's coming in way higher than expected. But we are at that jumping off point where you say, do we jump off, or do we go back and reevaluate where we are? We've got two options to show you. One's around a $14 million option. One's a $16 million option, and we can go into detail on that one. Go into detail when we get back that Thursday. But we did want to show you where we have been able to identify resources if you want to do it. I do, from the management perspective, there's more value for your money in the larger project. To cut it, you're actually cutting more value than the cost of what you're cutting, and so that is the hard piece of this.
If I could say, because I won't be here for the next meeting, I have a national meeting. This has kind of been my baby from the beginning, because I serve on the tourism board, and we miss so many opportunities because of our current clubhouse. We miss golf opportunities, reunions, weddings, all sorts of things. This will produce revenue. Will it pay the bill? No, but it will produce revenue. And tourism is convinced that we can attract larger golf tournaments. Right now, the golf tournaments are going to Bermuda Run and Salem Glen because of our clubhouse. I asked specifically, even Wake Forest, they're they had a golf event, and I said, why did you go to Bermuda Run? And they said, because of Tanglewood Clubhouse. I said, okay, but I do hope that we can find a way to complete this project. I think it's a benefit to Forsyth County. Am I sorry that it came in so far over budget? I'm very disappointed in Samet, I don't mind telling you. But since I won't be here when this decision's made, I wanted you to know my opinion now.
And I will, I think to that point, we spent through a bond issue, the courses, the championship course is in amazing shape. And so this is sort of the missing link of frankly, a world-class facility. So I think it was maybe prepared in that light, but
Well, I think you were very creative. We were fortunate in where a lot of these sources of revenue came from. We're very fortunate. And I think you've been very creative in assembling, collecting together lots of different little pots of things and moving it around. And so my hat is off to you for figuring out a way to pay for it. So Kyle, thank you for figuring that out. That was very creative. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things for me. I probably have to hold my nose to vote for it, but
Well, and it wasn't just budget, it was definitely Terry's staff too. We worked really closely with Lee Plunkett and Terry on this as well, so thank you, Terry.
Okay.
And I can say, I think we've been down this road with Callidium also, so.
Oh, yeah.
not as severe as this road.
Well, I don't know.
Well, in terms of project growth, probably. I don't. Yeah. So.
Well, it was the original budget came from a back of an envelope. The original budget did not come from an architect actually doing a serious.
Fair enough.
Doing a programmatic takeoff. This budget came from an architectural takeoff, which back of an envelope architectural takeoff. It makes a big difference.
Absolutely. All right, I'll just real quickly review the other items that we're working on that we'll brief fully when we come back the Thursday after Thanksgiving. We've got a resolution designating new review officers to review and certify plats. There's just a statutory responsibility that you actually approve the folks who are authorized to do that. You've got a resolution, the notice of intention to reduce the salary regarding the register of deeds and all that. That's just second reading, I believe. Is that correct, or should it not be there?
It should not be there. That's my fault.
Well, my fault because I thought it was a second reading, so I would probably said something to you, but apologize for that. You've got a 100th anniversary of the Delta Sigma chapter of Winston-Salem, and Commissioner McDaniel has requested that we recognize that. Minutes. You got several grant items. We've got some more of the grant funds that flow up through the National Association of County and City Health Officials for overdose prevention. You've got one regarding the necessary awards for the Department of Health and Human Services, an adolescent parenting program grant. You've got a submission of an application to the National Park Service to apply for funds at the Horizons campus for the Memorial Industrial School campus. That opportunity was actually brought to us by the Memorial Industrial School CDC, and it really did look a lot like what we were already doing with some other money on the community building there. And so we just applied for that grant money. It's about $700,000 that if we get that, it would actually, some dollars could flow up to take a look at the two baby cottages there and see what we might ought to do. And that was the real interest of the CDC. And so, but it also can be used for what is probably going to be an overrun in the budget for the community building there. So, and we'll see if we're successful with that, but they did match up really nicely. You got a grant from Winston-Salem Foundation for Cooperative Extension Service. They've been they've got donors who I think earmarked dollars for that arboretum at Tanglewood Park. And so got that that's out there. You also have a revision to the JCPC council funding plan. We just talked about item 15, which is all those dollars that are that would get moved if you want to move forward with the projects, and then 16 and 17. I am really pleased to say that we have the recycling center there in Kernersville back up in operation. We were able to go ahead and do that, but the lease agreement with Kernersville does need to be re-upped to do that, but we wanted to go ahead and get it open, so they are actually open right now. You've got a resolution for opioid funds, and you'll see some of those as we move forward. Way back in the fall, item 20 was the medic staffing. They had requested a franchise agreement. We said we'd bring that back in December, and so that's what item 20 does. You've got a resolution.
That's actually a different item. It's a very similar name, but this is medics.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is a staffing, thank you. Yeah, this is actually a staffing contract, so appreciate that. Contract with Forsyth County Public Library and Online Computer Library Center. Nearmap, which is, you'll learn a little bit about oblique imagery, which is really a tool that the tax office is going to be able to use. Computing endpoints, those are computers, and it's an item to consider that. And then also in the security world, multi-factor authentication is MIS going to bring that to you. You've got a contract with the Forsyth County Intelligent Corporation for agenda management services. I think that's our system that we use, and that's over $50,000, so it would be coming to you. And then you've got the shared use agreement with North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program. So a lot of business items for consideration, and you know, of particular interest is the capital projects that we'll take under consideration. So we'll have a lot to share with you at the end of November, heading into that December 7th meeting. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's all we have.
All righty. Anything else for the good of the order? Stand adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy Thanksgiving holiday to everyone.